Hello everyone, my name is Kinnari Sonavne and we will be starting with a session on Excel macros. What is macros? Macros is a tool in Excel which helps the user to record a set of actions, create its shortcut and execute it as and when required. It happens a number of times that we have to perform same set of actions on regular basis. In such scenarios, macros helps us to record the steps of such action and implement them freely on the data. It creates a function with n number of steps for processing of all the data types. So there is no restriction as to which data types can be considered for recording of a macro. It can be recorded for string operations as well as numeric operations. It can also record the combinations of inbuilt functions of Excel. As we all know, Excel has a number of inbuilt functions such as sorting, filtering, formatting, displaying the data using charts, etc. So, a combination of all these inbuilt functions as per the requirement of the user can be used to record the macros. The recorded macros can be run from the macros Dropbox, which contains the list of recorded macros, or by assigning a keyboard shortcut while it is being saved. So this tool also enables us to assign the shortcut key for the implementation of the recorded macros. Basics of macros. Macros are one of the developers feature in Excel. So in order to explore this feature, we have to initialize or enable the developers tab in Excel. Macros use VBA, that is Visual Basic for Applications, as a programming language for the implementation. Once the macros is recorded using the actions carried out in Excel, it gets saved in a form of a code at the backend. The user can access this code any time and carry out required changes and implement the macros. Getting started with the macros. As I've mentioned earlier, we have to enable the developers tab. Once you follow these steps, the developers tab will appear on your toolbar. You'll notice that there are 5 sections in the developers tab: code, add-ins, controls, XML, and modify. Visual Basics tab in code section opens the backend of the macro. So once you click on the Visual Basics tab, you'll get a new screen with a list of recorded macros. You have to right click on the desired macro and there will be an option of view code. After clicking on it, you will see the entire code for the recorded macros appears on your screen. Macros open a dialog box to name, modify, and run the recorded macros, whereas the macros tab in the code section gives you a dialog box with a list of recorded macros and options to name, to edit, that is modify, run the macros. It also has the option of for assigning shortcut keys for the macros and description for the same. I'll be covering a few examples so that you will get an entire idea of how to record the macros, to edit the macros in the code format, or to access the recorded macros, also assigning the shortcut keys and all the features of the macros. The first example would be highlight the negative numbers in the data. Next would be calculation of percentage and highlight the failing students. Third would be sort and display the data using 3D column chart. And fourth would be VBA coding for currency converter. The first 3 examples have actions to be carried out in Excel. So we'll be recording the macros by carrying out required actions. And the last example, that is VBA coding for currency converter, is completely based on the coding part. So you'll get an idea to create the macros using Excel sheet as well as creating a macro using VBA. So let's get started with the examples. Our first example is to highlight the negative number in the data. So this is a data set which has number of readings with respect to time. Some entries are positive whereas some entries are negative. Maybe the user requires to highlight the negative number. So if we select this negative entry, I'll show you the steps for now to highlight the number in a required format manually. So we select the entry, we click on the drop down menu over here in the number section. we have an option for more number formats. After clicking on it, a dialog box will appear. So here are various categories. For us, we have to format a number, so we'll select the number. Here is a sample of the number. Here we have to mention the number of decimal places the user needs to display. So let's consider it to be 4 in our case, and it being a negative number, you can see there are types in which you can display the negative number. On seeing the data set, we notice that the negative numbers are already with a minus sign and in black color font. So in order to highlight it, we'll select the second option, that is red color font. And the minus sign is not there, but due to the red color, we'll be sure that it is a negative entry. So after clicking on OK, you can see the number is in our desired format. In order to record a macro for this, we'll go in the developer section. First, we need to bring our cursor in a blank box so that it does not get recorded for a single value. We'll go in the developers option. We'll click on the record macro. We have to name the macro. Let's name this macro as highlight for our understanding purpose. As I had mentioned earlier, here's the option of assigning a shortcut key. Let's assign it to be Ctrl plus H. And description. Please make sure that you add a description to the recorded macro. With the help of the description, you'll always get an idea about the functions of the macro. So here we have to highlight the negative numbers in the data. Click on OK and the recording starts. We have to go in the home section. We have to carry out the steps, that is, go to the click on the drop down menu, select the more number format, select numbers, select the mention the decimal places required to display, click on the required format and click on OK and stop the recording. Go in the developer section again and here you can click on stop recording. So this is the macro which you have recorded to highlight the numbers. And select a few readings from this data and we'll run the macro, recorded macro. So you have to click on the macros tab. Here you can see the list of the recorded macro and here you can see the option of running the macro. So now you can see there are the negative numbers are highlighted with in red color format with 4 decimal places. You can also try the implementation using the keyboard shortcut key, that is Ctrl H in our case. So here we go. This was a macro for highlighting the negative number. Our next example is to calculate the percentage of the students and highlight the failing students. This data set has 3 columns, that is the marks of 3 subjects, math, physics and chemistry. In order to calculate the percentage of this marks, we first have to calculate the total for each student. After calculating the total, we'll divide it by 300 as these marks are out of 100 each. So once we get the total, we divide it by 300. We convert the 300, that is decimal number, to percentage format, and then we apply conditional formatting to the percent column and highlight the students who have scored less than 35%. So we'll directly record a macro for this example. We'll start recording. Click on record macro. Name your macro, percent and highlight. We'll assign a keyboard shortcut to be control P. We'll add a description to calculate the percentage of students and highlight the students with percentage less than 35. Click on OK, the recording is started. We'll create a new column, that is total. We'll go to home, just click on auto sum. For these three, for the marks of these three subjects, you click on enter. You drag and drop till the last entry so that you'll get the sum or total of three subjects for each and every student. We'll create a next column, percentage. We'll give an equal to sign. We'll select the cell which contains the total of three subjects. We'll divide it by 300. We'll click on enter. You can see it is in the format of decimal numbers. So we'll click on percent sign in the numbers section. It gets converted to percentage. We'll drag till the last entry to get the percentage of all the students. Now we'll select this column. We'll go to the first entry. We'll select this column. We'll click on conditional formatting. We go to new rules and we have to format the cell that contains cell value lesser than or equal to 35%. Don't forget to mention the percent sign. What do? We fill the cell with a, say, red color. We click on OK and we go to the developers tab and click on stop recording. So our macros for calculating the percentage of the students and highlighting has been recorded. We'll implement it on this data. You click on macros, click on percent and highlight and click on run. So you can see the same action is carried out. So you can do this a number of times whenever you get the same number of columns. So if you have 3 columns with the marks of 3 subjects, you can always use this macro. Our next example is sort and display the data using 3D chart. So we'll open a new blank workbook. We'll open the data set. That is, I've created a dummy data set which has 15 to 16 entries. It has a state, a column called state, store and sale. Because I'll be showing you the sorting function being carried out manually on this. We'll go to home. You have selected the data which you have to sort. So you'll sort with respect to 2 columns, that is state and store. Now when you see the data, you cannot actually get an idea of how many stores or what all stores are there in the states or how many states are there in the entire column. So to get an idea, we need to first sort out the data. So we'll carry out the sorting. Click on the sort and filter drop down menu in your home section. There's an option of custom sort. Click on that. A dialog box appears. So you'll select the column sort by states. So state is your first priority. We have to sort on the basis of values of the cells, and we have to sort in order A to Z, that is the ascending order. Here we have an option called add level. Click on that. So the next one is store, and base you have to sort on the base of values in an ascending order. So once you click on OK, you will see you get a sorted data which tells you that there are 4 stores like store 1, store 2, store 3, store 4 in AP with the respective sales. Same with all the states. So now we'll record a macro in sheet 1 for this, and after sorting we can insert a 3D column chart for the displaying of this data. So we have selected the data. We'll go in the developers option. We'll record a macro. To record a macro for sort and display, we'll name it accordingly. We'll give it a keyboard shortcut, let's say Control S, and we'll add a description to sort the data considering multiple columns and display it in the form of 3D column chart. Click on OK. Now the recording has started. So you select your data. You go in the home section. Click on sorting and filter. Custom sort. You select the state column, values and A to Z. You then add your level. You select the store column, values and A to Z. So our state and store will be sorted on the basis of the cell values in ascending order. Click on OK. So the sorting is done. Let the data be selected. Go to insert. Click on column. Click on 3D column. And you can see a 3D chart appears on your screen. But this is not giving you a clear idea of what the sale is actually. So we'll change the layout of the chart. We can also make it more impressive for your eyes, and we'll stop the recording of the macro. So now we will go to sheet 2. We have already selected the data. We'll click on macros. We'll click on sort and display, and we'll click on run. So you can see a 3D chart is in front of you just in 2 or 3 clicks. So this was a macro for sorting and displaying the data in a form of 3D chart. Our next example is of VBA coding. So let's get started with the VBA coding for currency converter. So you can see on the screen there is a button which is named as convert. Once you click on it, dialog box with a name currency converter appears on the screen. It has list for changing a currency in one format, that is maybe euro, US dollars, British pound or INR, to another format. If you select US dollar and you give the number to be 20 and you want it to be converted in say INR, you need to click on the convert button over here and you get the value. So this is the output. Go to sheet 2. I'll show you how to insert the buttons or the list box or the form. Click on insert. You have to select a button. So maybe imagine you have a data set which has a currency from different countries, and you have to tell the user in a country that he needs to pay so and so amount in his currencies. So this might be useful there. So we'll place a button over here in a corner of the active sheet. So you can see there's a command button. So now you click on view code. This is a screen which appears once you click on the code. So you can rename this. Click on command button object. Click on edit. So here we'll keep convert. We'll name this button as convert. So let's go in sheet 1. I'll show you the code for this button. Click on the design mode, select the button and select the view code. So this button is to initialize the user form. So we'll copy this and we will paste it in the code of this button. View code. So you'll put this here, user form 1.show. Okay. So whenever you click on this, you want the dialog box to appear. Okay. So now click on Visual Basics. Click on your user form. So this is the user form you have to create. I'll show you how to create a user form. We'll add a new user form over here. Insert a user form 2. So whenever you have to add a list box, so there is a toolbox which is appeared on your screen once you insert a user form. So we'll select, there are various options. So we'll select a text box for us. Text box would be for the entries, for the numbers, like what is the number you want to convert. And first one would be for that, and the second one would be for the output. So one text box for input, one text box for output. Next is the list box. The list box will consist of the 4 options you have. So you see, this is the list box. And the last one is your command button to convert. So I'll place it over here. So whenever you have to change the, now we can close the toolbox. Once we have entered our requirements on the user form, you can close it. Now you can see the properties of each and every inserted function. So here is the properties of command button. So you need to change the label of the command button. So here will be the label. See the caption. You can change it as per your requirement. Let's just name it convert and enter. So this is the way you create your user form in Excel. Once that is done, you have to view the code for this. So click on view code. So this is the code for your user form, which takes your input, which selects the type of your input, that is in which currency you are giving the input, and to which currency you want to convert it. So this is the code for list box, that is we have to add item euro, similarly US dollar, British pound and INR. Then we have to end with the list box 1. This is a piece of code with for the list box 2. We'll assign the index to list box 1 and 2, that is 1 and 0, and we'll assign the values to the text box 1 and 0.721. It's just for the initialization. You must be wondering that there are two parts of code, that is private sub user form initialize and private sub command button click. So when your user form is created, you go to the view code, you will click on user form and you will click on initialize. You can remove this. The first part of your code should be private sub user form, where you will put the code for the list box 1, list box 2. You will list the indexes for the list box and you will initialize the values for the text box. Then you click on the view code for the command button. So you see here automatically a sub portion of the code gets initialized with private sub command button click. So the action is click. Once you click the command button, you want something to happen. So what is that conversion part? So you can code it. We'll view the code for the command button in user form 1. So here's the code. First you have to initialize the rate like 0, 1, 2, 3, which will be 0 will be for euro in the list box, 1 will be US dollar from the list box, 2 will be British pound and 3 will be INR. So you have to initialize the rates, that is 0 to 3 and 0 to 3 for two list box. You have to mention the data type, which is not just going to be an integer because you will convert it currency from one form to another. It will require, for a safer side, we will initialize the output to be of double data type. Second, let's initialize I and j as integers for the loop actions. So here we will give the rate. Rate for conversion of euro to euro, that is 0 to 0 would be 1. Rate for conversion of euro 0 to 1, that is euro to US dollars, it would be 1.38475. You have to just Google and get the rates for each and every conversion, like euro to US dollar, euro to British pound, euro to INR, and vice versa. For I is equal to 0 to 3 and for j is equal to 0 to 3. So you see the working of I and j comes in picture in this if statement, where you say that if the index is I, something from I, and index of list box 2 is something from j, then the text box 2 dot value, that is the value of your output box, should be equal to the value of input box, that is text box 1 dot value into rates, which we have assigned over here. So the rates would be dependent on our selection from the list box. You exit the design mode. Whenever you click on your convert option, a dialog box pops up with a two lists, one for the input and one for the output. You mention your amount in the input box, input text box. You select your conversion factors and you click on convert and you get the value. So in this way you can code for the user forms, you can create such dialog box and you can implement them as a macro. So this was all about the examples. First three examples were carried out with the help of the Excel sheet, with the help of the functions in the Excel sheet, and the last one was completely based on the code. I hope you get an idea of how things work in macro. Thank you.